So I was thinking of reading that Tibetan that I gave you last time. I'm not sure that we need to read it. It may all be obvious, but maybe we could take a quick look at some of it. Page 72. If you go to the next line, page here, Teda ki sambe wongi. The Teda refers to Sokcha Tamje. You with me? There you go. It says Tegya Sokcha Tamje, all living beings. Teda ki sambe wongi. That's what I pointed out last time, was where the Tsongkhapa tradition got Lo Nimala Nawe Wongi, Shakpa Mayimba. Because he's here talking about how things are posited as existing conventionally. And he says through the force of their thoughts. I believe I mentioned this last time. In thought then is taken as meaning any consciousness, even a sense consciousness, right? As long as it's lo nime. As long as it is a non-defective awareness, which is quite a stretch. All the entities of false things are just conventionally existent. So then if you take the opposite of through the force of their thoughts, they're posited through the force of their thoughts, you then get which are not positive. For the object of negation then, you go to the opposite, which are not posited through the force of appearing to a non-defective awareness. That's where that comes from. Now the Tumwaimbe Jolukungurne Truba, I didn't even think about that, where that comes from. But Tumwaimbe Joluk means uncommon mode of abiding. So here he's indicating that it's through the force of their thoughts, right? So uncommon mode of abiding would eliminate that objects depend upon awarenesses.
So was that the mode of abiding which is common to both subject and object?
No, it's a mode of abiding which is posited, not just by way of the object, but also in dependence upon appearing to a subject, to a consciousness. So it's not a mode of abiding that's shared with objects and subject. Rather, it's a mode it's a status of existence that is achieved through the dual force of the object and the subject. I think that's enough. We could go on forever.
That's just a generic Svāntantrika object of negation. That's not particular to Svāntantrika.
Right, it's not. It's generic. And being from Kamalashila, you would think it might be particular to whom? Yogacara, Svāntantrika, Madhyamaka. You might think that. And as I said before, this is the clearest statement of the object of negation in Svāntantrika. And number one, it's talking not about the object of negation, but what it means to exist conventionally. Number two, all of these other things have to be read into it. Right? But that's the genius. One of Chandrakirti and two of Tsongkhapa. Chandrakirti didn't lift this out even also. But Tsongkhapa could tell from a close reading of Chandrakirti that he also felt he had a different view about emptiness. How do you get a different view about emptiness? You get it by what is negated in emptiness, right? Empty of what? And so then you have to fish around and find these, to find them. Sorry. Not even Chandrakirti found something in Bhava Viveka, okay? In Bhava Viveka, that even in this clearer way speaks to the issue of what is negated in emptiness in the Svāntantrika system. So let us turn to today's reading in Newland. The first 38 pages I think are rather marvelous, don't you? You say, nice. I hadn't read some of it. He had updated a good bit of it after the thesis, adding much more detail. What is being divided into two truths? What is the standard Gelupa interpretation? Okay. Objects of knowledge. And what is the particular import of the term objects of knowledge?
He talks about, I don't know if I want to say this, I thought ontologically and epistemologically.
Okay, so these are different objects of knowledge. They're different objects of knowledge. The Gelupa claim is that with the two truths is not just a matter of when you look at the table with a conventional consciousness, you see a table. You look at it with an ultimate consciousness, look at the very same thing with an ultimate consciousness, you see emptiness. But isn't that true? When you examine the table with a reasoning consciousness, what do you perceive? The table? Emptiness of the table.
So they're one entity, but they're two different things.
But when you look, aren't you looking at the table? With the reasoning, isn't the reasoning consciousness examining the table? Yes. It's examining the table. But what does it find? Finds the emptiness table. So then, aren't the two truths two ways of looking at the same object?
No, they're the two aspects of the same object.
So you can see how easily people would think that these are two ways of looking at the same object. An ultimate way of looking at the object and a conventional way of looking at the object. But, I mean, there are two styles of looking at or into the same object that are involved here. Two styles. But what you come up with when you examine it in the ultimate mode of reasoning is what we were doing. You end up with the emptiness of it, which is a different object of knowledge than what you were originally looking into. Or perceiving the object, then perceiving the emptiness would be the same. Or the ultimate cognition would invalidate, undermine the conventional cognition. But didn't Buddha say in the Heart Sutra, form is emptiness, emptiness is form? How are you going to explain that away? According to the Prasangika system, do the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras require interpretation?
No.
So? So that's not called requiring interpretation to explain what it means. Do you follow?
Yeah, it's called
merely to explain what it means.
Buddha's thought.
So what did Buddha mean?
Buddha meant that both emptiness and form are aspects of the same entity.
Aspects of the same entity.
Right, like the table has an aspect of the tableness, and it has an aspect of the emptiness of the table.
That sounds pretty good. The terminology of aspect number is not used. But Chandrakirti actually uses the terminology of entity. he says each object has two entities. So are they different entities? Is the entity of the conventional truth of this table and the entity of the ultimate truth different? They're the same entity. Then he should have said each object has one entity. That's a cute debate that I used once in Dharamsala. But I don't know what that means. They aren't different entities. You can't say they're different entities. But Chandrakirti says there are two entities. That kind of entity you have to say is different, I guess. It's objects of two different types of consciousnesses. So the change in epistemology is very important, right? Very important. But you're seeing a different object. Otherwise, you'd be canceling the existence of the conventional truth when you saw the ultimate truth. And that's what we felt like, wasn't it, earlier, when we were searching to find going? That the ultimate cognition, which is supposed to be smarter, right, ultimate, was canceled. We weren't finding going. And we felt going was being canceled. Or maybe going just existed for a dumb consciousness. And Tsongkhapa wants to say that's not the case.
Didn't they say that only Buddhas can see both simultaneously?
Both simultaneously, right?
Did they explain
Directly and simultaneously. That the perception of the one doesn't prevent the cognition of the other. But this is another way of talking about the obstructions to omniscience. So when you perceive the one, it makes it impossible to, when you directly perceive the one, it makes it impossible to directly perceive the other.
That's one of the obstructions to omniscience.
That's one way of describing the obstructions to omniscience. Frankly, I think that's the same as saying the predispositions that cause objects to appear, that make objects appear as if they're inherently existing. I think it's the same way, different way of saying the same thing, myself.
Do you have a way of saying that in the Buddha's perception, some way of making it so that he isn't canceling conventionalities by seeing it at the same time? You see directly connected.
It affirms the existence of conventionalities, doesn't it? This one consciousness is capable of doing both things. But this is the unusual nature of a Buddhist cognition.
Is that when you can maintain mental equipoise even every, is that what they mean?
Yes, you're in the state of being in meditative equipoise and being out of meditative equipoise occur simultaneously. Unlike for sentient beings who alternate between the two. But you have to realize, of course, that a sentient being, like a bodhisattva on the path of seeing, who has cognized emptiness directly, when that bodhisattva again perceives conventional phenomena, it's not like our perception of it, right? But still, the overlay of inherent existence is there. So you can only imagine what the number of overlays that we have. So, if you look on page 40, Newland lists the various assertions about what the basis of division is. As Jayanesheva said, the basis of division is objects of knowledge. Yeshi Sheja. And the divisions are the two truths. I just want to give you today. Yeshi Sheja, you not them by me. So, what's wrong with, we've already talked at length about what's wrong with having truth be the base of division?
That really, they're not really two truths. It's not that it's a truth that you divide how do you say this? What is it? Concealer's truth is not really a truth. It's not a.
Why? Doesn't exist the way it appears. So then why are they called truths? Yes. Ignorant consciousness takes them to exist the way they appear. So that's that. So the whole thing about two levels of truth and all that just doesn't hold for this system of interpretation. It's pretty hard to think that there's any system that would still make sense out of Madhyamaka and have truth be the basis of division, right? It's, I'm trying not to say this one's right and that one's wrong, but on this one, it seems to be beyond the pale. Now, another person says the entities of all phenomena from forms up through omniscient consciousnesses, right? I want to see what you can remember from the list, not what you can read now. But on our list on page 40, if we just confine ourselves to looking at that page, I want to see what you can remember. As one of my friends in graduate school used to say, "Oh, I know that, it's in my notes." The entities of all phenomena from forms and so forth through omniscient consciousnesses. You should like this. Because you said the entities, right? Mm-hmm. So, what's wrong with this? You got to be picky to complain about this. So, what would it mean if you said form is divided into two truths? What would be the fault with that?
I'm just wondering if there's two forms and they have to be an ultimate form.
So if you took form and divided into the, two truths, then both of these would have to be form. Okay? Well, the person said, look, that's not what I was saying. Come on. What I was saying is entity of form, right? And so then, as he's saying, the conventional truth would be an entity, one of the entities of form, and the ultimate truth of the form would be another entity of the form. What's wrong with that? Chandrakirti himself said every object has two entities.
So they're
right?
different entities.
Well, Chandrakirti himself said every object has two entities.
But then you would have to say that emptiness is a form.
Would you? Would you? Of course, that's not what the person means. It's just like you said, form has two entities, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the entities of form, you divide into one entity that's a conventional truth and another that's an ultimate truth. You can do a picky thing or what about consciousness? Is it a division of the entities of form? The conventional truth of consciousness and the ultimate truth of consciousness. You follow? You have to not think kindly. In other words, if you took the entities of every phenomenon and made it the basis of division into the two truths for every phenomenon, right? Then they would all be cross-functional. This is like being stupid and not understanding what the person is saying. This is just for form, not for consciousness. One person, well, that isn't what I meant, right? That isn't what I meant. Talking about the entities of form would be the basic division for the two truths with regard to form. And the entities of consciousness would be the basis of division into the right. So then, as Newland said, what? Aren't there many ultimate truths? So then what is sort of like the basis of division? Do you follow? For conventional truth and ultimate truth. So you're not getting down to one thing. You have to say entities of form, entities of consciousness, entities of green, entities of blue, It's not, elegant in its simplicity. But you can say, geez, this is really accords with what Trinity said. You know, no big answer. Okay. Then, mere appearances. This looks good. What does mere and mere appearances eliminate? Yes, inherent existence. Inherent existence. So, you can't take inherently existent things as the basis of division. Be just things that just appear, right? And just eliminates that they're inherently existent. So what's the fault here?
Non-existence that appear would also
Non-existence that appear would be a basis of division, like the horns of a rabbit. They appear, don't they?
basically the mirage.
Yeah, mirage appears.
Yeah.
Well, mirages exist, don't they? That's why it's very carefully stated here. A mirage's being water appears to the eye consciousness. Oh, now that's getting too cute, isn't it, even? Don't you think there'd be some way, if this were our, so-called our, a Gelugpa opinion, that they'd have some way of defending this? You know, through some cute distinction? But, so it'd be too wide. Non-existence would be included too. Oh. Nasty. This is almost nasty, isn't it? Then uninvestigated and unanalyzed objects of knowledge. What's the problem with them? With that, that's the basis of division.
Remember what they say.
Because remember, things are posited as existing only within the context of non-analysis and non-investigation. Trinity says that over and over again. That means non-ultimate analysis. And that's what it means here, non-ultimate, without, does it say objects of knowledge? Yeah, it even says objects of knowledge.
So where would emptiness come in?
So that's the problem here. Emptiness is really something that you find upon analysis.
Is that saying that it doesn't exist without analysis?
It's not something that you say exists without analysis. Yes, it's something that exists without analysis. So,
Then why is it a problem?
yeah, right. But is emptiness found upon analysis of emptiness?
No.
No. When you look in define emptiness, you don't find it. So it is something found upon analysis. But that's what the person means when the person says unanalyzed. When you're searching for it, do you follow? Emptiness.
So you don't exist as horizontal analyst. Because when you analyze it, then it doesn't exist.
Yeah, you don't find, when you search to find the emptiness of the table, you don't find the emptiness of the table, you find what?
The emptiness of the emptiness.
The emptiness of the emptiness of the table. So you can see, if to truly exist, to ultimately exist, means to exist in the face of analysis, to be found in the face of analysis, then in one way it would look as if emptiness ultimately exists. Emptiness is the non-finding that is found, right? The non-finding of going that's found upon analyzing for going.
But you're just analyzing for going, you're not analyzing for
Yeah,
And
right. That to me almost makes it, that's correct, but it makes it almost sense as if, well, your analysis was not complete, and that's the only reason why you thought. You found this non-finding, because you didn't look for the non-finding, in which case you wouldn't find the non-finding. But it can't mean that. So does an ultimate consciousness find anything? No.
yeah, that's what's
Yeah.
The absence of what it's looking for.
Sort of as if it was sort of stupid. Makes it sound like that, but it doesn't mean that at all. It doesn't mean that at all. So, unanalyzed upon searching for it, right? That's what the person must have in mind. So that doesn't seem so bad. Non-reified objects? What's wrong with that? What does non-reified mean?
Not complete, overly.
Non-reified into what? What specific reification is it eliminating?
It's limiting conventional truths, isn't it? The same thing.
Inherent existence. It's eliminating inherent existence. Jaya Shiva, the guy doesn't raise this objection, but Jaya Shiva raises the objection, well, what about the Sankhya system? So really, these are way off the wall. It's like, where did that come from? You see, the Sankhya system is a reified system that has plenty of exaggerations in it, reification. And the Sankhya system, however, exists if its particular tenets don't. Oh, that's a weird one, isn't it?
Object without inherent existence, is that what-
Yes, non-reified means the person's intending again to include, to exclude, as in mere appearances, something that inherently exists. Things that are just made up. The whole gamut. Doesn't seem so bad, again. Phenomena. What's wrong with phenomena? Aren't objects of knowledge? Object of knowledge and phenomenon are synonyms, aren't they? What's wrong with phenomena as the basis of division in two truths? Are ultimate truths phenomena? Yes or no? Are they objects of knowledge?
They are actually.
Is object of knowledge and phenomenon a synonym? Are they synonyms?
I guess not.
Are they mutually? Oh, so what's wrong with saying phenomena? Both of the two truths are phenomena. You could put down the synonyms of object of knowledge, right? Probably object would be suitable. Existent. What's wrong with it?
Because it doesn't include non-existence.
You want to include non-existence as the basis of division into two truths? Are the horns of a rabbit empty? Oh, then the horns of a rabbit are inherently existent? Oh, they are. Horns of a rabbit are not inherent. Are they empty of inherent existence? You have to say yes.
Yes.
Oh, then there's an emptiness of inherent existence of the horns of a rabbit.
But if inherent existence is a division of object of knowledge.
Inherent existence?
Oh,
Are the horns of a rabbit empty of inherent existence? Do the horns of a rabbit lack inherent existence? Why? Yes. Because they don't exist at all. No question. So are they empty of inherent existence? Okay, yes. Is there an emptiness of inherent existence of the horns of a rabbit?
Yes.
That's what people say no.
They don't have an existence.
You say yes? So then there's a selflessness of the horns of a rabbit? No, come on. If there's the emptiness of the horns of a rabbit, it has to be the selflessness of the horns of a rabbit. Then emptiness and selflessness are not qualities of existent objects?
They are existent objects.
Just
Not just existent.
qualities of just existent objects?
Not just.
I should have the famous statement that says that they're just qualities of existent objects. I don't have the famous statement, but it's there. So you just have to draw a line somewhere and say horns of a rabbit are empty of inherent existence, but there's no, that doesn't constitute an emptiness. Why? Because realizing the absence of inherent existence of the horns of a rabbit does not constitute realizing an emptiness. Why? You said it earlier. Because you can realize that merely through realizing that the horns of a rabbit don't exist. Okay? How can you realize, do the creases of the horns of a rabbit exist? No. You realize that just through knowing that the horns of a rabbit don't exist. The same with its being empty of inherent existence or whatever. Even I was gonna say it, right? So you see, that doesn't constitute an emptiness.
So emptiness has to be of something that is existent.
So
Yes,
the horns of the rabbit are empty of inherent existence,
yes,
but there is no emptiness in the horns of the rabbit.
yeah, that's what I'll say.
So then what is it that you're realizing when you realize the horns of the rabbit?
You see, the term emptiness carries with it some additional force, that its substratum exists. Otherwise, when you realize the emptiness of the horns of a rabbit, you would have realized emptiness. But you'll be able to extend that to all phenomena without any further cogitation, to any phenomenon without any further cogitation, and you would understand emptiness. You know. You got to draw the line some cute place, preferably.
Did you just say that the emptiness, the horns of an existent phenomenon, affirms the existence of its substrate?
Yeah, I think we could say
So then emptiness is an
that. Affirms. No, it doesn't affirm. I'll take that. I'll take that. I was speaking loosely. No, well, I suppose. Yes. Good.
What is the basis of the definition of the emptiness of emptiness of the
Yes. You mean you're worried about searching, not worried. Your concern is with searching for the emptiness. How are you going to search for it and not find it? Is that right?
Well, the emptiness, if you can't say that there's an emptiness of the inherent existence of the horns of the rabbit, then I'm just wondering why that is, if that's because there's no basis of designation for that emptiness.
Oh, you mean substratum? Base of well,
What is substratum?
substratum means some object that it's a quality.
That would be emptiness.
Some existent object?
different from the way they talk about the relation between a table and its emptiness? They say substratum or something there?
Now, yeah, no, I'm saying that I think you're talking about substratum as opposed to the basic designation. For instance, of the emptiness of this table, can we say that it's the emptiness of this half of the table and the emptiness of that half of the table are the basic designation of the emptiness of the table? Me. That would be the basic designation of the emptiness of this table. I don't think that was what you were talking about.
The mistaken consciousness that perceives the table to be inherently existing.
No. Basic designation of an object has to be something that constitutes that object.
But the inherently existent table is constituted by the consciousness that perceives it to be inherently existing.
The absence of inherent existence of a table is constituted by the consciousness that conceives the table to be inherently existent.
Not the absence, the presence.
The presence, you're talking about the
The
presence?
inherently existent table
Or the inherently existent
exists
table?
because.
Oh, no, it doesn't. Doesn't.
Well, it doesn't exist, but it.
Doesn't exist. Doesn't have a basic designation. How is it? Wow.
I want to go back to these horns of the rabbit. The horns of the rabbit are empty inherent existence, but the emptiness of the horns of the rabbit doesn't exist. Does that mean that the horns of a rabbit, the non-existence of the horns of the rabbit in this room doesn't exist?
The non-existence of the horns of a rabbit in this room exists. I would say this.
So why doesn't the emptiness of the horns of the
Now
rabbit
then, you're right.
exist in this room?
What?
Why doesn't the emptiness of the horns of the rabbit exist?
The non-existence, it's just that the term emptiness carries this force.
Is it just a more specific negation than just saying empty? Or is it?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird, isn't it? In my meditation on emptiness, the selfless is divided into the existent and the non-existent, which means the non-existent would be selfless is all right, but for selflessness, couldn't be the basis. But that's why many teachers don't want to put the selfless as the basis of division into the existent and the non-existent. This is all to emphasize that you can realize emptiness only with respect to something that exists. Now, how did we get off on this term?
Division of phenomena.
Oh, yeah, what's wrong with saying this is something logically wrong or sensibly wrong with saying that existence are divided into the two truths? Both truths are existent, both truths are object, both truths are phenomena, both truths are objects of knowledge. So what's the problem? Why not? What's the problem?
I thought they just chose it for some sort of reason to
Yes.
refute.
Oh, just you get that kind of taste here, don't you? That they're out to refute. Giant Shiv is out to refute a whole bunch of people.
I thought it was something to do with the people that said that Buddha didn't know emptiness.
Couldn't be known
I don't
by.
know. They want to get the fact that it was knowable
Yeah.
in there.
Yes, that it should be known. Should be known. I don't think in this there's any fault of Buddha's not knowing ultimate and conventional truths. What was that a fault of? I forget which one of these assertions. It's that there's a soteriological impact when you use that which is to be known as the basic division. But this, in terms of liberation and attainment of omniscience, these two are to be known. So you lose that impact. It's just the impact, not just. So which
I think it's the unanalyzed phenomenon that is the Buddha problem. Then the Buddha doesn't know emptiness. It's only unanalyzed phenomena that are driving it.
why choose the Buddha? Why not say no one would know?
Because really knows, or like, I don't know emptiness because I'm just sort of.
Yeah, but you don't have to go to a Buddha, you go to a first-round bodhisattva or bodhisattva in the past preparation.
A powerful debate example to say that Buddha doesn't.
No, you tend not to go to the highest example, you go to the lowest. So, you want to dig that out? Which,
Why? Oh.
right here. We shouldn't just leave it hanging. The last is perspective, and we've already considered that, which Guy handles very nicely. He doesn't just, he says it's not two perspectives on the same object, but it's hard to say that there's an ontological difference. Are the two truths ontologically different? Are they? If they're different objects of knowledge, you would expect them to be ontologically different.
The one entity.
But so what? Within one entity, they could be ontologically different, couldn't they? On what basis? Ontology should mean a different status, that the two truths have a different status. And they don't. Neither is inherently existent, both only conventionally exist. So even though it's not just a difference in perspective, which would be eliminating that it's not just an epistemological difference, it's hard to say that it's an ontological difference, right?
Even though it exists as it
Emptiness does exist as it appears to its tumu maimbe jokje lo, the awareness which is its uncommon certifier, which is meditative equipoise. Well, that would be interesting. You'd have an ontological difference between that which exists, between that which exists the way it appears and that which doesn't. It seems worthy of being called an ontological difference. I think you have to say, Hopkins, I think, says that the difference is ontological. I don't know as he spells it out. He says because it isn't epistemological. But there, when, to swing back to the epistemological side, it is a different type of consciousness, right? That knows it. I think that's a good way of putting it. Did you find it?
Yeah.
Which one, which position is it?
It's mere appearances.
Mere appearances.
And it's because of this remote things that you can find in emptiness under analysis that it inherently exists. So it must not be able to be found at all. And then,
So he didn't want to say, that's what the force of his saying the mere appearances, right, are the basis of division. He didn't want to say that emptiness is found by an ultimate consciousness. So because of this problem, some people say emptiness truly exists because it's found by an ultimate consciousness. Other people say, well, emptiness is not found by an ultimate consciousness because otherwise it would truly exist. If something is found by an ultimate consciousness, does it have to truly exist? Does it have to exist ultimately? Everybody's, no. But
But it has to be existent. It has to exist.
emptiness is found by an ultimate consciousness, but again, because it's not found by an ultimate consciousness that's searching for it, it can ultimately exist in the face of an ultimate consciousness, and yet not ultimately exist. Right? So what does ultimately exist mean? Ultimately exist then does not mean exist in the face of an ultimate consciousness. Because what exists in the face of an ultimate consciousness? Emptiness. Empty. So then what does ultimately exist mean? You might be able to say exist in the face of a consciousness that's searching for it. Exist able to bear analysis by... Exist able to bear analysis, wouldn't that work? It gets, isn't it like this after a while? Okay. What do you want to pursue? We have
About the
a few
phenomena,
minutes.
I didn't still get the difference. I mean, why phenomena cannot be?
It can be the basis of division. It can.
Okay.
All of these can be. It's just that they don't have the soteriological impact that using the term sheja, geya, which means to be known, something that is to be known. These are the things that are to be known have.
Isn't phenomena also including non-existence?
No, what does it translate? From Tibetan or Sanskrit? Sure. In Sanskrit? Dharma. Yeah, these are only existence, only things that exist. Now, I chose the word phenomena. I think I started this. But in any case, if I didn't start it, why do I use I asked Richard Robinson, well, what about using the word phenomena for Dharma? And he said, well, if emptiness appears to the mind, then it'll be all right to use it. What word then are you, what's the sort of partner of phenomena? Noumena. So then in Hopkins' system, there is no noumenon that is not a phenomenon. Are you with me? Emptiness would have to be the noumenon. But then there's no noumenon that's not a phenomenon. So by my very translation of Dharma, right? Phenomenon, I'm skewing the whole system to a Gelugpa interpretation. Those people who say ultimate truth is not realized or doesn't appear, what is the problem? Oh yes, that means ultimate truths are phenomena, right? Therefore they must appear to some consciousness. And you take Shantideva's statement, ultimate truths are not objects of awareness. There's no way that you can take that quote. Once you admit that ultimate truths are phenomena, appear, then how are you going to take that quote, ultimate truths are not objects of awareness, if you're going to take it literally, without explaining it? So ultimate truths are not objects of what kind of awareness? Dualistic, mistaken dualistic awarenesses. In a Gelugpa read for it? So some people just take it literally. Ultimate truths are not objects of awareness. But Hopkins has already called them phenomena, you see? But I very carefully decided that at least the system of translation equivalence should be true for some one system. Better to have that than to take a step back and use the Sanskrit or use the Tibetan or whatever. But then you who are dealing with, all of us deal with a multitude of systems. The very translation equivalent leads you to the wrong idea. That there must, with regard to translating some other systems. But I decided that's better than saying it's Dharma. I'm reacting against Lavallée Poussin, who, and Jacques May, for instance, who will just throw in the Sanskrit instead of translating it. Because then the passage goes dead. By your comments today, I can see that you're getting into this system. It's understanding how it works. And thus you're ready to think about contrasting it, comparing it with how Euro-American, Japanese scholars have, okay?
So you don't want us to contrast with other traditions? Buddhist, other
It's almost too hard to. It's too big a task. Other traditional traditions, you mean? Yes. It's almost too hard. Anyone who's trying to do this has failed, because not enough work has been done to be able to do that. It's certainly not that I'm partial to Gelugpa interpretation. In fact, on some issues, I prefer or feel that they accord more with so-and-so. Then, assignments. For 1025, it's Newland 51 through 94. And Emptiness Yoga, 156 to 203, which is going on with self-existent persons. And 383 to 390. Meditation on Emptiness, 57 to 60. 131 to 150, 639 to 650. Good.